cable sports channel, except GSM.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. We are at our third segment for today's show, and we will be talking about the ever-changing betting landscape for the Olympic Games, especially on the American side of things. And now that certain events, like I said, are fully underway and some are getting into their final stages, I just wanted to give you guys another update on how the Olympic betting landscape is looking. Let's start out in everyone's favorite sport to talk about men's basketball and women's basketball, for that matter. ESPN BT, where I got this idea from the article from, said that 39% of bets and 55% of handles are on American athletes. That's an astonishing number due to the fact that, like I said, it was highly international. But I think the reason why it's not fully international is because everyone is so attached to these American stars. The shocking thing is perhaps, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the segment, that it's not just the big sports that people are attached to. It's kind of sports that we don't often see every day. Let's start off with the one that everyone's familiar with. In men's basketball, can anyone knock off the U.S. men's basketball team? They are the by and large favorite to win the gold medal, and minus 400. And then I thought this was interesting as well, and I thought I would just add this in. The U.S. women's basketball team was only at minus 2,000. That's kind of a huge discrepancy when you think about it, because the WNBA has become more prominent over time and more high-profile stars, but maybe it's due to the fact that a lot of people are kind of annoyed that some of the rookie class from this year may have been left off this team. Be that as it may, I still think they as well should be considered the favorites. They have a ton of veterans on that roster that have really helped get the WNBA to where it is today. And I think that more people should take stock in that. But let's go back to the men's side of things, because as we talk about the U.S. men's basketball team, we also have to talk about who potentially, if anyone, can knock them off course. And I think the top two favorites that everyone's talking about are Canada and Germany. Canada because they're the second most NBA talent, and Germany because, well, they're just the most well-coached team, perhaps in the entire tournament. And so those two teams, because of those identities, are perhaps the two that I think are the only teams that can really truly challenge the U.S. for that gold medal. Let's talk about Canada for a second. I think the reason that Canada is kind of flying under the radar is because there are teams like France and Germany who just play so well within the system of the international rules, the FIBA rules, if you will, that the Canadians kind of get lost in the fact that they actually have players who A, play in the NBA, B, might understand the nuances of what the USA will do, and C, have the second most talent, like I said, from the NBA. You have guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you have guys like Jamal Murray, Andrew Wiggins, that play, in the NBA. Maybe not superstars, but they still understand what it will take to potentially beat the U.S. And so, now that it's in the quarterfinal stages, I do believe that Canada will get more respect as the tournament goes on. But the reason why I'm kind of skeptical of them is because do they have the versatility to defend the U.S. for long stretches of time? Now, our very kind of guard-centric team, they're not, the tallest team per se. And so I might have more concerns about them than I do in Germany. And I think a lot of people need to respect Germany because they don't have that big, high-profile NBA star on their team. They have Dennis Schroeder. They have Daniel Tice. They have Mo and Franz Wagner, who could potentially become stars in the NBA, but aren't just there yet. But the reason why I believe that Germany is the top contender to knock off the U.S. is because they're just well coached. They don't need to be these big stars to play well together. It's because they work within the system so well. They understand what their coach is asking of them, and then just execute the game plan at any given time. And that's what you might need to break down the USA, because Steve Kerr has made some decisions in these Olympics that have raised some eyebrows. And so, if you, for that period of time, for 48 minutes, can come up with a better game plan than the U.S., then that might be enough. And Germany seems to be the team that can always come up with a game plan for anyone. And so, beware of them. I think they're at plus 850. I think that, if anything, Germany to medal or potentially win the gold. I'm really going to say it because Germany are just that fantastically coached and structured to win that gold medal. Now let's talk about the track situation. We just got underway in the track, and I know I'm a little bit late in this because all of these bets were made before both Lyles and Richardson ran in their respective 100-meter events. But Noah Lyles was the overwhelming favorite to win the 100 meters. And he's also the overwhelming favorite in his best event, the 200. Now, the reason why I think a lot of people bet on Noah Lyles, even when this was a very crowded 100-meter field, you had guys like Marcel Jacobs, who was the last Olympic champion at 100 meters. You had guys like Keyshawn Thompson. You had guys like Fred Curley, a fellow American, who really were high-profile runners as well. The reason because Noah Lyles just gets so much more attention. When you think of track and field stars, the only ones you really see are A, American ones, and B, men's American ones, really. Women's are getting a little bit more popular, but when you think about the track and field, you think about the American men and their kind of storyline throughout the years to get to this point. Remember, Noah Lyles is the first American man to win the 100 meters in 20 years. Not since Justin Gatlin in 2004 had an American won until Lyles did. And so, at plus 140 on the 100, those are stellar odds for someone who, in all reality, very well could have lost that race because of that field that he was in. But nobody really cares that much about the field outside of Noah Lyles because he's American. That attachment to American culture, when you're talking about a sport that doesn't get as much national attention in America, comes down to, oh, he's the best American, let me pick him. And then in 200, if you're familiar with him in 200, that's his best event, even better than 100 meters. So minus 350, he's a simple, safe bet for you there. And so I really think that as more events that we don't often see every day come into play, a lot more betting lines favor the Americans. The same thing happens to Carrie Richardson, even though she got the silver medal. Minus 175 on the 100 meters because, like I said, she's very high profile as well. That being said, she only really has this one event to truly cement her place. And I think that's what led to a more risky mentality. I think that a lot of people weren't expecting her to lose this race. But I think that in terms of the women's sport, I think that the women, the reason why they are starting to get more attention than the men is because they're also getting the respect in terms of track and field. I think that with the dichotomy between Noah Lyles and Sha'Carri Richardson is a lot closer than people think now. A lot of that can actually be attributed to, the Netflix series Sprint, where both of them were heavily profiled. And I think that both of them are also very, very passionate runners. And I mean that because of the things they say to really hype themselves up, hype up the anticipation of the race, and also really, truly get everyone to pay attention to them and pay attention to the spectacle they can bring. And that, it also brings about this sense of excitement that previously might not have been there in terms of betting. And so those two are really the figureheads because of what they bring to the table. And then we go to Sydney McLaughlin at minus 500 and 400 hurdles. She's just someone who's so excellent and so calm and composed while doing whatever she does that she's almost a no-brainer. And I think in a much less popular event, it's highly easy to, when you see someone who transcends the event itself, you immediately put your money on them. And that's what Sydney McLaughlin does. She's always, been someone who you don't expect to be as boisterous as, say, a Noah Lyles or Sha'Carri Richardson. She's someone who really lets her running do the talking. And that's what I think people are attracted to. She became a star just by dedication and hard work. She doesn't necessarily have to talk to back anything up. I'm not saying that Noah Lyles and Sha'Carri Richardson are better in that regard because of their quote-unquote trash talk. I'm just saying that Sydney McLaughlin is so rooted in being fantastic, but also understanding that she's someone who's just trying to bolster the sport for women in track and field. I really think that's why a lot of people gravitate to her as well. So overall, when I think about Olympics and betting and how our attachment to certain athletes here in America plays into it, I certainly feel as if as tournaments and races get deeper and deeper, we're going to start having to understanding the nuances that lay beyond just looking at American athletes, because at any given moment, any one of them could slip up. It almost happened to Noah Lyles, and it did happen to Sha'Carri Richardson. It could even happen to the U.S. men's basketball team. Who knows? But we all have to focus on understanding what that could mean in the future. That's why I wanted to update you guys with this. But coming up next, we're transitioning to our prop bets deep dives, looking at two AFC West teams, like I said, starting off with a team kind of in rebuilding, maybe a retooling mode, the Denver Broncos. We'll be right back to talk about them after the break.